Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Of reality, I'm gay married.
Ooh.
Right? Like, what is the point of this conversation?
Because you're not really married.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna outright call you a fascist.
Oh no.
And say that what you're saying is hate speech.
I have XX chromosomes, Michael.
You have XX chromosomes.
Yeah. Would you
Okay.
call me she, her now?
I don't. I'll defer to you. Hello, I'm Michael Knowles. I'm a conservative podcast host at The Daily Wire. I'm an author and I'm a cigar salesman of Mayflower Cigars. And today, I am surrounded by 20 LGBTQ+ activists. My first claim is that there is no such thing as marriage. Wow.
Nice to meet you.
How are you,
Michael.
sir? Nice to see you.
I'm doing well. So your claim, what's the underlying philosophy of your claim?
Well, I guess the underlying historical part of my claim is that everyone for all of history everywhere until, and I'm being generous, 2001, agreed with my view that there's no such thing as marriage. So it seems to me that marriage intrinsically requires difference. And furthermore, I think that any claim that marriage could be redefined to include marriage would render the term marriage incomprehensible.
Would you say that this is based off of natural law and how Thomas Aquinas defines natural law?
There's a good natural law argument for it, but I think it's based on more than that.
It's more than that.
Based on anthropology.
So then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights or is it a social rule?
I think marriage is an institution. I think it's the fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy,
Of course.
that man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think at the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage.
God, I hate this. He's a smart guy. Knowles is very smart. But that was just so bad faith. That was a good start to the question. I don't know, but he didn't answer the question, right?
Apologies.
So then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights or is it a social rule?
What is marriage? Is it legal rights or is it a social role? Which of these two things is it? And then he gives a kind of a background building on the idea of what marriage is, but he doesn't actually explore or answer that question at all, right?
I think marriage is an institution. I think it's the fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy,
Of course.
that man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think at the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage.
But all of those, especially with natural law, is just an assertion.
And he lets him get away with that because he should push him on that. I don't know where this guy's argument would go, but I mean, like, if you think that marriage is some sacred institution that's only part of the church, then why the fuck are there any legal rights for it then? It should just be a church thing. It shouldn't be like a state recognized thing, right? I think that's where that argument goes next. I don't know if he would make that one, but.
Of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage.
But all of those, especially with natural law, is just an assertion without evidence to back that claim, in that we see marriage over time in various cultures has been different things.
In which cultures would you say you see same-sex marriage?
I did not say same-sex marriage particularly, but the role of it when it comes to family, when it comes to conditions. Because we do also say that if somebody is lawfully married, especially in the eyes of the church, they cannot be divorced and then married again.
Well, I oppose divorce and remarriage, but I'm making a more modest claim than that. I'm just saying that at its core, marriage necessarily involves two different sexes.
But how would you prove that?
Like, he speaks so well, but he's already been annihilated. This guy, I don't even know if this guy realizes how much he's annihilated in a really concise manner, too. Because Knowles, it sounds like Knowles was making some, like, almost natural law claim about what marriage is or how it's always been up until 2001. And then this guy very quickly points out he hasn't even gotten to the same sex part. And he's like, no, marriage has existed in a lot of different forms for a lot of different reasons. Your claim is completely and totally invalid. And then Knowles responds with some total, like, non-answer. But then this guy just keeps going instead of, like, focusing on, like, okay, so you admit that your original claim is totally baseless, right?
Because all of natural law is just this assertion, I can just as easily say the opposite, in that marriage is a set of legal
You
rights.
keep bringing up natural law. I'm
Yes.
actually speaking even more basically. I
Even
love
more
natural law,
basically.
but I'm speaking
Yes.
even more basically.
More basic than natural law. Okay.
It seems to me that the only way that marriage could have a meaning is if it involves different sexes.
But once again, you're defining that meaning. But marriage essentially is a set of rights conferred from two spouses when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to the rights of the children, when it comes to a number of about 1,100 federal and state.
He's getting back to the legal argument, sure.
Okay,
rights.
then what you're getting at is interesting. It might help us move forward. How would you define marriage?
I would say marriage is a
Ooh. Now he's going to be put on the defensive. I don't like that switch up. Well, I don't know. This guy seems really smart. He's spoke intelligently, and I give people a lot of props when they speak concisely. So he's been intelligent and concise. So we'll see. I bet he can defend whatever definition he puts forth. I hate that Knowles was able to weasel out without answering a single question and having his foundation, pretty quickly destroyed by this guy over here. But
is a legal contract between individuals when it comes to a set of property laws, when it comes to family law, when it comes to children, and many other rights that are conferred. And we do see that those rights have been conferred to members of the same sex. And so say that same-sex marriage does not exist is not true because we see it.
Well, you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children. Well, two men cannot create a child.
so what a dumb answer.
Well, you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children. Well, two men cannot create a child.
But
Two
neither
women
can
cannot
infertile
create a
couples.
child.
They could literally adopt a child, and you don't have to have every single thing I don't want to say set theory or whatever, but like a set can contain all these things, but it doesn't necessarily have to have everything to be part of that set or whatever, right? Like that answer is like logically not even valid, or that response didn't make sense. It was stupid.
And neither can, there are a number of couples that cannot have children.
Sure. So infertility sometimes occurs, and that's
And
unfortunate.
so does gay marriage.
Well, no, gay marriage cannot occur. I guess.
But you're asserting that.
Tautologically, you're not addressing that was an argument. Oh my God. Holy f***. How nervous is Knowles? This is the first kid in like a 2-hour thing. And he's like, what the f***? Who is this kid? These aren't the random college kids I'm used to I'm used to debating. Oh no.
Without proof. We see that it does happen in that word that we mean marriage.
You could,
legal rights.
you could say that there's such a thing as a square ball. You could say that. But a square ball doesn't really exist.
Well, but that's presupposing the definition of a square and presupposing the definition of a ball. We're arguing over what the definition ought to be, not whether or not two terms comport with a thing given some definitions, right? You're a layer removed from the argument.
Would you agree that people have been lawfully wedded in the eyes of the government, and those two parties are members of the same sex?
No, I'm saying that isn't possible. So laws can assert all sorts of crazy
things. You're asserting that without proof.
Like the law could say that a black person isn't a human being, but that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't make it true.
This is a category, like a black person isn't a human being, but that wouldn't make it true. But like human being is a concept that probably exists outside of government definition, whereas marriage, as we understand it, to confer a whole bunch of legal rights and everything, can't really exist outside of some institution that would recognize said legal rights and everything else, right? Like,
once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree?
Oh my God! Actually, no. What a stupid response. There's a knockdown argument for this.
Black person isn't a human being, but
like for a long time in U.S. history, black people couldn't even vote, and at one point in time, they were considered 3/5 a person for purposes of voting. So the government literally has defined people insofar as like people are voters, or people are people that are allowed to be counted for representatives in the House, right? For your 3/5 compromise. So the government literally has done exactly this before. Historically, they've literally done this. But
that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't make it true.
Once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree?
You're bringing up Aristotle. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
Well, I like Aristotle. That Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic Church.
Bro, that's like some dirty shit. When somebody's, I feel like Aquinas is like the this is like the guy that religious people like to bring out because he was like their philosopher who had all his arguments for God and all that shit. When you get an atheist, I don't know if this guy's atheist, but somebody else is like weaponizing Aquinas against you, that's got to be a bad feeling. It's got to be a bad feeling as a religious dude.
You're bringing up Aristotle. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
Well, I like Aristotle. That Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic Church, are a view that you use to base your worldview off of.
I am Catholic, but marriage actually even predates the church. So I guess my view is your definition of marriage seems to get a little muddled. You say it's a legal arrangement of family.
This guy is Catholic? Oh, is he? Okay. That would explain the Aquinas stuff. Who's raising flags? Fuck off.
But to say that marriage is a legal arrangement pertaining to family is circular. Of course it's a legal arrangement pertaining to family. I'm saying, what is it? When you say it's an arrangement that pertains to children, you're saying, well, okay, now we're getting closer because only a man and a woman can produce a child in principle.
What?
And of course, some couples are infertile.
He's reducing it. This guy was saying that like marriage is a thing that includes it can include, or it can denote like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And Knowles is like, well, what about for people that don't have D? It's like, okay, that's fine.
But just because a human being, let's say, loses an arm, doesn't mean that human beings only have one arm or might have three arms.
We're discussing what the component.
Exactly, a necessary component instead of a
And that necessary component doesn't come from anywhere.
No. Well, I'll give you my definition of marriage.
Absolutely.
I think marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman ordered toward the procreation and education of children and as a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses.
Is that secondary matter the legal part or?
But once again, when we say ordered towards, is to look at the world with these preconceived notions about things.
I'm not preconceiving anything. I'm just observing nature as it is. No, I'm just observing nature, and I'm saying that that's what marriage is.
Just observing nature, we see that there are same-sex couples. So if we go,
that's how do you even? There has to be a presupposition here. If you're just observing nature, you can see there are heterosexual marriages and there are homosexual marriages. What is the?
We are observing.
No, I'm not saying there can't be same-sex couples. I'm just saying there can't be same-sex marriage.
Are there same-sex individuals that have entered into a legal contract that the state recognizes as a marriage?
Sometimes the state gets.
I can watch 10 minutes. I think I can handle 10 minutes of this, maybe. He's so easily
things wrong, as I'm arguing.
What is that? Yes.
Sorry, when Noel says observe in nature, he just means it's a feature of like the universe, something that you can observe with you can see, not that it's like in nature, like in the force or whatever. That's what he means when Noel's saying in nature here.
Contract that the state recognizes as a marriage.
Sometimes the state gets things wrong, as I'm arguing.
What is that? Yes. So there are couples of the same sex that have been wedded in the eyes of the state.
Since 2015, the U.S. government pretends that two men can be married to each other.
But you're basing off of that nothing. You're basing that off of nothing.
No, I'm basing it off of the Obergefell decision from the Supreme Court. They're pretending. They're acting as if two men can marry.
According to you?
No, according to the Supreme Court in the Obergefell decision.
We keep using pretend as if things.
No, he's not. Yeah.
exist outside of the institutions that we make.
I'm just saying the word has a meaning, and I gave you a very clear definition of what I think it means and what statistically everyone for all of human history everywhere has thought it means. And you've given me this kind of jumbled description that keeps contradicting itself. And that's my whole point, is I think it is not possible to define marriage.
How could a Catholic ever pretend that there was a worldwide consensus on what marriage meant? That's such an interesting position for a Catholic to take. What about the Church of England? Like, how could you?
I have nothing against you fellas.
According to who?
Prove me wrong.
Prove you wrong. Once again, are there couples in the U.S. that have entered into a covenant that society views as marriage?
Well, some people in society view it as marriage, but many do not.
But you aren't
That's such a weasel. Oh my God.
ones conferring rights to society.
But I don't think that the government dictates reality. I think that if the government came in and passed a law and said that human beings are people with 3 heads and 17 arms and octopus tentacles, and so we decree the U.S. government, that wouldn't make it true.
But who defines marriage?
You've been voted out by the majority.
A pleasure to meet you.
Oh man, who's coming up next? Damn, that guy cooked the out of him. Holy shit. Okay, please be ready. Please be good.
Close.
Hey, good to meet you, Mindy.
Mindy, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, my name's Mason. But
Mason.
Nice to meet you. Yeah,
I'm Michael.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, do you have a birth certificate?
Not on me, but I do have one.
Okay. Well, I can't confirm that your name's Michael until I see that birth certificate just as a definitive.
Wait, hold on.
Do you have a Hey, good to meet you, Mindy.
Mindy, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, my name's Mason. But
Mason.
Nice to meet you. Yeah,
I'm Michael.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, do you have a birth certificate?
Not on me, but I do have one.
Okay. Well, I can't confirm that your name's Michael until I see that birth certificate just as a defender of objective truth. But we can go more into prompt speaking about marriage.
You could actually, if you have faculties of reason and you say, well, this is the sort of fellow who presents himself, in a credible way.
Bro, he supposes so much. This is so philosophically dirty. Well, if you have faculty of reason, then obviously you'll agree with me because you'll just think the same thoughts that I think. Everything he does is a tautology. Like, he's just, the definition is the thing it is. Like, and how do you know it is the thing that it is? Well, because of the faculty of reason. Well, that's how convenient. You might as well be citing direct... is it special revelation where God reveals things to you personally? Like, you might as well just say that. What the? Like, he's speaking in a more sophisticated manner to basically say it's common sense. That's his whole argument.
And you've probably checked with the producers here. They've probably verified that I am who I am. So a reasonable person would be able to know who I am.
That is more performative characteristics. Is that what you're implying? Is that I'm able with my faculty of reason to assume that I'm speaking with a man in front of me? And therefore I can just politely go with the name that you're presenting to me almost as an act of respect?
No.
Oh, I don't want to hear any trans arguments here because they're all so bad. This argument, though, damn. Oh, man, he's going with the... Ooh, that was a strong one. I think Knowles realized the trap he was being walked into. He didn't want to own it. He was like, wait a second. I wonder if he thought it was still going to be a gay marriage thing.
That I'm speaking with a man in front of me? And therefore I can just politely go with the name that you're presenting to me almost as an act of respect?
No, I just think that I wouldn't have gotten in this building if I weren't really who I say I am. So.
Okay. There's never been instances of fraud or mistaken identity or people impersonating other people? Like, that's never happened before?
Gotcha.
That would be my deduction.
We'll bring it back to the prompt, going back to specifically saying marriage. You said you argue from an anthropology? That's like your basis.
Men and women are different, and marriage involves one of each. Yeah.
Which specific culture are you referring to? Because we have so many cultures that have communal relationships in which people are raised. When you said in the act of procreation, have you ever heard of it takes a village to raise kids? But it's not something that's just a saying.
No, I didn't say that
happens literally in specific cultures.
No, but when I say procreation,
what specific culture are you referring to? Because we have so many cultures that have communal relationships in which people are raised. When you said in the act of procreation, have you ever heard of it takes a village to raise kids? But it's not something that's just a saying.
No, I didn't say that
happens literally in specific cultures.
No, but when I say procreation, that's the act of creating the child, and usually there aren't 3 or 4 people involved in that. It's usually 2 people.
Yeah, but even those people that do create the child, oftentimes we're referred to as different genders depending on the culture that it is that you're observing.
Which cultures are you referring to?
We can talk about the Mayans. We can talk about certain Amazonian cultures. I recognize that they're not Western cultures, so you might not prioritize them. What was doesn't mean that they don't exist.
What was their? Well, they no longer exist. The Mayans.
Oh, right, because of colonialism.
My very basic understanding is every culture has more or less recognized 2 genders, and any other third gender has always been like a very not good thing that you would never want to talk about. I don't know if we're getting into this is the trans argument that I don't like. If it's going to be like, well, other cultures have had trans things, that's not a good. This is the weakest version of trans arguments. Although this guy's been sharp so far, so who knows? We'll see where he goes with it.
I'm glad that you're just.
But what was their view of gender? What specifically are you referring to?
Specifically a social characteristic that we're all performing in right now. I mean, you can't say.
No, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm asking what you brought up the Mayans. What did the Mayans think?
That's just something that is.
But what did the Mayans think? You brought it up. You seem so confident about this. What did the Mayans think about marriage and gender?
We can talk about difference in the way that they are recognized.
Can we? I don't know that you know the difference. You said there was a difference, but you haven't explained how there was a difference. And I think this is what people.
So when Knowles has a point that he feels like he's winning on, notice how he's good about bringing it back over and over again to it. You brought up the Mayans. Define what the Mayans thought. You don't know what the Mayans thought, right? Knowles is good at trying to hammer home on the point that he feels he's strong on.
Prompt specifically on the Mayan anthropology.
Okay, I'm trying to drill down. Just when you say there are different understandings of marriage throughout history and time and space, I say, okay, maybe that's possible. How? Tell me. Point to the examples. And you said, well, the Mayans. And I said, okay, well, what did the Mayans think about marriage? And you don't have an answer. And none of these people have answers because everyone has. Do you have an answer?
People can look up right now. If you're right near Google, yeah, exactly. Michael's trying to hone me down on trivia night right now.
No, I'm just
right
asking
now,
you to
we're trying
explain.
to talk about specifically our examples.
Can it just be said that marriage is mind dependent, just like gender, and has no intrinsic property? So Knowles cannot make any objective statements on marriage's nature. He wouldn't accept that it's mind dependent, though. It would be a is it a Platonic argument, a Plato argument about, I don't know real philosophy. F you. Like universal forms and these are like features of the universe that maybe God can reveal to us or we can observe, but concepts like marriage, all the things conceptually that exist as part of the religious framework, if every single human being were to die, those things would still exist and they'd be very real. They'd be features of the universe, as real as a tree or as real as anything else. God might reveal these things to us, or we might observe these as part of being religious or whatever, but Knowles would not say that these are mind-dependent concepts. He would say that in the absence of every human, these things still exist, I believe, is what he would say.
I'm asking you to explain the point that you brought up. And so what people usually do is they say, well, look, I'm sure that there were all different types of marriage throughout history all over the world. And what I'm telling you is there actually hasn't been.
So you're telling me that a Catholic priest are the people who created like a certain ceremony within the Mayan culture? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that if you want to listen, I'm happy to tell you exactly what
I'm listening. Ears are open, Michael.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mindy.
For all of history, everywhere in the world, until roughly 2001 in the Netherlands, every single culture, every polity has believed that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, ordered toward the procreation of children. And that's what it has always been.
You're saying that's the specific objective of what marriage is?
That's what
thousands of years, marriage has been used for property transfer. That's what marriage
is also. It's also used for the mutual support of the spouses, but it is in principle ordered toward the procreation of children. That's what distinguishes it from other kinds of relationships.
Would you say there's an aspect where love is important, specifically within this current culture? Would you say that you love your wife?
I do, but now.
Okay, well, that always hasn't been the case, specifically when it comes to things like
there are
arranged
plenty of people
marriages.
today who don't love their wives.
That's absolutely true.
I suppose the difference
as I just mentioned, that love has not always been something that's recognized, even in some couples.
We love people in relationships that are marital and in.
I like how Knowles never deals with anything directly. I kind of like this. He was going to hit at what of the elements of marriage might be love or whatever, according to Knowles. But in the past, the procreation of children, I believe, for like noble families or for monarchs, wasn't ordered towards the creation of a happy, healthy family. It was ordered towards diplomatic unions between different families for the purposes of property transfer or joint ownership or diplomatic ties or whatever else, right? It wasn't just to make kids to have a happy, healthy family for the service of God or whatever, right?
Relationships that are not marital. We sometimes don't love our spouses. We sometimes don't love people who are not.
But now he's like, Knowles is just rambling on some irrelevant shit now to distract from that.
I think the point of what this conversation, Michael, is we're seeing different motivations in which people actually get married.
But I'm not asking about
motivation. It doesn't have to be
motivation.
specifically for the procreation. It doesn't have to be specifically for property transfer. And in some instances, it can just be the union of people who care about each other.
Okay,
but the fixation and the obsession of same-sex couples is just what's so weird, specifically when conservatives claim to be big, strong men, cigar salesmen that are out there presenting this certain image. It's weird how you're focusing more on gay people than oftentimes gay people focus on gay people.
I'm not focusing on anything. I'm not the one who changed the definition of marriage.
You came in here making the claim, hey, all of these marriages that I'm seeing are not legitimate.
No, I'm saying they're not marriage.
My feelings.
No, because that's just not what marriage is. Like if you told me that there was such a thing as a square ball.
The ball that we're referring to is a yellow ball and a green ball. It doesn't mean that the ball is square.
Now I think we're confusing our analogies. The reason one can't have a square ball is not because one has an animus against square balls.
See, this is a tricky argument by Knowles because it seems logically correct. You can't have a square ball, but why can you not have a square ball? You can't have a square ball because they both agree on the definition of square and they both agree on the definition of sphere. So you can't have a square ball, but they're not arguing about whether or not you can have a gay marriage. They're arguing about what the definition of marriage is. He's removed this one level in order to make a compelling analogy, and the analogy is compelling, but only because it misunderstands what the underlying argument is. They're not trying to argue whether or not you can have gay marriage. They're arguing over what marriage is, because if you accept his definition of marriage and his definition of gay, then logically you can deduce that gay marriage doesn't exist, obviously. But this is I wonder if anybody's going to call him out on this little philosophy trap that he's got here.
It's because it's in the nature of spheres and squares that one cannot simultaneously be both.
The fear isn't seeing a gay marriage and saying, oh, boo, oh my God, I got scared. The fear is, oh my God, my rights are being taken away, or the institution of marriage is degraded, specifically because we're expanding it to people who also love each other.
It's because even in principle, two fellas can't make a baby. That's the difference.
As we mentioned, there are people that are infertile that you wouldn't say their marriage is any less legitimate.
In principle, their marriage is inclined toward the procreation of children.
That's not true. Because we just talked about there were certain instances where marriage is used as a property transfer. It's not for procreation.
But again, it's also
used
any
of his marriages were illegitimate.
I would because I'm a Catholic, but that's a separate issue. This is the issue. I love my buddy, right? I love my Aunt Gertrude. I love my cousins, but I'm not married to them. I have lived with roommates. I wasn't married to them. Many people have slept with people who are not their spouses. That doesn't mean they're married to them. Marriage has to have a definition that is different from all of these other kinds of relationships. And the only one that anyone throughout all of history until roughly 2001 in the Netherlands has ever come up with is that it's a union of a man and a woman inclined toward the procreation of children. And also it so happens that children are raised in a much better way from a man and a woman.
This is a specific motivation that you continue to reiterate and parrot. That is just not true if you look at various examples. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. What was his name? I didn't catch it. That was easy. You got it. How's it going?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. So I am not in this politics world. To be honest, all I know about you is your name is Michael, and you don't marry your cousins.
I don't. I don't. I avoid that.
So I was taking some notes here on my handy dandy notebook.
Okay.
You're making a lot of appeals to things, you know, appeal to nature, appeal to the dictionary, appeal to the past.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Anthropology.
I feel like what you're ultimately appealing to is Michael's idea of marriage. And that's fine, right? But
I'm appealing to everyone else's idea of marriage for all of history.
Well, so here's the thing. Haven't there, before, I don't get sidetracked here, but briefly to respond to that, weren't there other ideas in the past that were bad?
Well, there are plenty of ideas in the past that have been bad and discarded. There are very few ideas that have existed everywhere for all of history and continue to exist today, albeit in a slightly different form, that are bad.
So,
right?
What about slavery? Or spousal abuse? Or rape? Or conservatives? Got them.
Why am I supposed to care that people have believed something for a long time?
Well, because often things that have endured forever everywhere do so because they work or they have some tethering to reality. But in this case,
in terms of reality, I'm glad you mentioned the...
What about sin? Hasn't sin endured in all corners of the earth in some way? Like,
word reality, because in terms of reality, I'm gay married. Ooh, right? Like, we live in a society where if you look at polling data, society seems to be okay with gay marriage. And so if you personally don't want to get gay married, you don't have to. But shouldn't we? I mean, I think like, what is the point of this conversation?
Because you're not really married. You have a relationship with a man.
I understand.
You're not really married.
I understand that you think that, and that's fine. But we should structure, because what's the point of this conversation, right? Like, I was kind of falling asleep through all like the Plato and Socrates and
I didn't bring it up. That was the other guy. That wasn't me.
I know. And we'll agree on that. Okay, there's the agreement for the thumbnail. All right. But like, the point of this conversation should be that we're deciding how we should conduct ourselves.
Yes,
right?
I can make it very practical for you. Children.
Bro, who do they get for this show? I feel like do they have like an A team of 25 people? Because holy shit, all of these people are very sharp.
Do very poorly when they are raised by two men or by two women.
That's an appeal to what a utilitarian approach for a guy who's arguing. It feels like he's arguing teleology. Or teleology, the purpose of marriage. What is the general purpose of marriage? Even if it doesn't always accomplish the creation of, I think the telos is like a kind of like this built-in meaning to a thing. The telos of marriage is to procreate and to have a family to raise them. But now he's arguing in a utilitarian sense. The counter to that is, oh, hold on, you're saying that children tend to be raised the best in this way. Therefore, that like in a utilitarian sense justifies your definition of marriage. If there were data then that showed that children were raised better in hedonistic, unmarried environments, would you suddenly change your definition of marriage? Of course he wouldn't. He absolutely wouldn't. He might refuse to believe that logically would even be possible. And he might even just reject the example because maybe for the telos, the purpose of marriage is built in to having good children. And that's like all part of one big, but then it just all becomes like one big presupposed argument and it's boring. I don't know.
Ourselves,
yes,
right?
I can make it very practical for you. Children.
Teleology? Is it teleology? Sorry, I've only read this word before.
Very poorly when they are raised by two men or by two women.
My understanding.
Also, I don't even think that's true. I'm pretty sure just because of the types of parents that are gay are literally pre-selected by the state. I'm pretty sure outcomes for children of gay people are just better than straight people, but just because of the selection bias there. Any two cockroaches can have kids. Not everybody can adopt a child.
Of the literature on this is that that's not true.
What literature are you referring to?
Oh my God. And he pushes him on give me the study. Damn. In the middle of a debate. All these people that follow these people always accuse me of being a debate bro. I would never, unless we come to some rock bottom, and I'm usually apologetic when I say, like, listen, I don't usually like to push for it. Like, can you point me in the direction? He's really gonna, what's the study? Damn.
Unfortunately, I was not able to bring notes here. If you look it up after,
I don't have notes either, but I'll tell you.
You can reach out to me after. I can email it. But we're getting off of my point here, and I don't like it. So I'm going to keep talking now.
I think it's so. You want it to be practical, and you want to avoid.
We're just going to talk over each other. No,
we don't
talk so much more than me. You're the hero. Let me talk. Come on, Michael. Let me talk. So,
if you want to avoid the point I'm making, which probably is good for your side of the argument.
Okay, if it's good for me, I'm going to do it. So, the point of this conversation is we're deciding ultimately, like, what should our laws be, right? If we live in a plutocratic society where a lot of people have a lot of.
You mean pluralistic?
Oh, pluralistic. Thank you. See, I'm not a media guy. I'm just a guy. Why am I here? He's a professional. Pluralistic. Thank you, Michael. So we live in a pluralistic society, and we should have our laws allow people to live the way they want insofar as we're not impeding on other people's liberties or harming others, right? To my understanding.
So what about the right of a kid to have his natural mother and father? Because when the rubber meets the road in gay marriage, it's not just two people living together. You could always do that. It's not two people doing those things you guys do that you could always do that. It's the ability to adopt children and in some cases acquire children by going to the baby store and purchasing the eggs of one woman, renting the womb of another woman, and raising children, depriving them intentionally of their natural mothers. And that's very wrong. And that does infringe on the rights of kids.
I understand that you believe that.
And all the side.
I feel like these are such utilitarian arguments. He's shifted. I don't think I would ever. Also, I can call this out because I'm just sitting here calmly reviewing it and pausing it and listening to it. I don't know if I'd be able to call these out in real time, but like like, I feel like a simple response would be like, oh, okay, we should probably release all men from prison who have children right now then, right? It's like, well, what do you mean? Well, because aren't you depriving all those children of their fathers? Like, we can find other reasons why a child might not have both parents, but we wouldn't start defining things based on what a child has after birth or whatever. This is a fool's endeavor. I think this is a very sneaky, slimy way of arguing.
Scientific literature, by the way, backs that up.
That's not true.
It is true.
Fact check that, please.
It is true.
Let's let them fact check that on video.
According to the National Institute of Health, numerous studies have found that children raised by same-sex parents fare just as well as kids raised by different sex parents. I thought it was better because of the adoption stuff.
I'm happy to fact check it for you right now.
No.
The study that you're referring to is the Michael Rosenfeld study out of Stanford in 2010, and it said that kids raised in gay households did just as well in schools.
It's not a study.
And that was a major study.
No,
but it was wrong. It had a major methodological error, and it's been corrected by multiple other studies.
I would love to engage with you on that.
No, it was a major study.
No,
but it was.
Douglas Allen re-examined Michael Rosenfeld's study using alternative methods and found that when compared to traditional married households, children raised by same-sex couples are 35% less likely to make normal progress in school. Allen re-examined Michael Rosenfeld's study using alternative methods and found that when compared to traditional married households, children raised by same-sex couples are 30% less likely to make normal progress in school. I wonder what that means. Let's find out. Let's go find it. Okay. Michael Rosenfeld, gay marriage adoption study, use. Oh, he forgot a space here. U.S. Census data to perform the first large sample nationally representative tests of outcomes for children raised by same-sex couples. The results show that children of same-sex couples are as likely to make normal progress through school as the children of most other family structures. Heterosexual married couples are the family type whose children have the lowest rates of grade retention, but the advantage of heterosexual married couples is mostly due to their high socioeconomic status. The lowest rates, heterosexual married couples are the family type whose children have the lowest rates of grade retention. What does that mean? The lowest rate of grade retention. Does that mean being held back? It's a really weird way of phrasing that, if that's what that means. Maybe it's normal for this field of literature and I'm not aware. But the advantage of, so this is good, obviously. But the advantage of heterosexual married couples is mostly due to their higher socioeconomic status. Children of all family types, including children of marriage, or couples, are far more likely to make normal progress through school than are children living in group quarters, such as orphanages and shelters. Okay. Am I typing this incorrectly? Don't use the PubMed URL. Which URL am I supposed to use? Click through to the actual article. What thing do I click? DOI. Doi. Paste the doi. Non-traditional families and childhood progress through school. The census complements 45 empirical studies by including all studies listed in Tasker's 2005 study rate that examined childhood outcomes. Several more recent studies listed by Wald, all 4 studies listed by Meason and Rauch as the highest quality studies in the field, and all the more recent studies that cite the earlier ones, none found statistically significant disadvantages for children raised by gay and lesbian parents compared with other children. These studies are listed in table form in a supplement posted in Demography's web. Okay, that's a lot of literature that seems to point towards there being no significant disadvantages for children raised by gay and lesbian parents compared with other children, but okay. The uniform finding of no significant disadvantage for children raised by gay or lesbian parents has been convincing to some scholars, although others remain unconvinced. Several points are worthy of comments. First, as the critics have noted, convenience sampling dominated this literature in the past. More recent scholarship has answered this criticism by using nationally representative probability samples derived from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health, as well as studies constructed from a hybrid of probability sampling and convenience sampling. A second critique of the literature, that the sample sizes of the studies are too small to allow for statistically powerful tests, continues to be relevant. The mean number of children of gay or lesbian parents in these studies is 39, and the median is 37. Both numbers would be slightly lower. Studies without comparison groups were excluded. Grade retention, the opposite of normal progress through school, has been increasing in U.S. schools since former President Bill Clinton proposed ending social promotion in schools in his State of the Union address in 1998. Grade retention is an important childhood outcome because retention in the primary grades is a strong indicator of a lack of childhood readiness for school, and effective parenting is a crucial ingredient for in-school readiness. Brooks, Gunn, and Markman argued that the lower school readiness of racial minority children is due in part to parenting practices that differ from the authoritative parenting style found in middle-class white homes. Gould, Brooks, Gunn, and Harris studied grade retention among urban black children and found that some indicators of parental stress, such as unemployment and welfare participation, were associated with increased grade retention for children. In other words, they found childhood grade retention to be a useful measure of difficulties that the students were experiencing at home, identified 3 potential sources of grade retention.